I'm talking to. Do you want to be called Hadrian Howard or Hade Vanson? I never quite know what to call you.
I don't know, whatever you feel like calling me.
I'm talking with Hadrian Howard, co-writer and actor in The Pickup. What first inspired you to start writing this film?
Well, it was myself and my good friend Jake Thornton. We initially started writing, had an idea for something else, some other film that we wanted to write, and we started on that, we were working on that, and it was going okay, but didn't really go anywhere. During the sort of process of discussing that film, we came up with a few. We both learned that we were reading this book, The Game, which is all about picking up women. One guy's story of how he became like the #1 pickup artist in Los Angeles' pickup community or whatever. And we were both reading this book and thought, wow, that'd be a fabulous film to make, fabulous script to write. And we were talking about that, and then the ideas for variations on that theme started to sort of come through, and then we sort of left it for a while, and then Jake went off and did his thing, and I went off and did my thing, and then about...
and what is it that you do aside from doing this?
I'm a professional wrestler.
Exciting.
Stroke sexy boy. And
you stroke sexy boys.
I stroke sexy boys.
Okay,
it's part of the job. It's a requirement. And then I was trying to write, because I thought that me and Jake had a really good idea before with this whole The Game and the, what eventually has become The Pickup. We had that premise early on. Then we left it and didn't really sort of speak for a while. We were just doing our own thing, and I thought, I'm going to pick up the pen again and start writing, trying to sort of come up with a script for this idea that we had. And I couldn't really, I knew what I wanted to write, but I couldn't formulate it in quite the right way. I couldn't make the sort of strings all sort of tie up. And I thought, there's only one man I can go to, and that man was Jake Thornton.
Hi, my name's Jake Thornton, and I am one of the co-writers of The Pickup, which I am holding the first draft of in my hands, just here. It's lovely. The first draft currently comes in at 70 pages, which isn't quite long enough for a feature.
What is the required feature length?
In America and Europe, it's slightly different. In America, the kind of 110 to 120 pages is kind of minimum feature length. In Europe, it's slightly less. In Europe, you can kind of get away with 90. That's not to say that Americans don't make 90-minute films. They do. In fact, one of my favourite films only runs at 77 minutes. That's a film. And again, Swingers, a kind of classic that I think was kind of inspired us quite a lot, is something like 90 minutes. It's almost exactly 90 minutes long. So yeah.
And how have you tried to... Obviously, there's a lot of films of a similar genre, like Swingers and all these other sorts of films out there. How have you tried to make this different from those?
I think we're plagiarising completely. No, I think...
And everybody will see that when they go and see it in the cinema.
Yeah. I've seen this film before. I think we've used films like Swingers, the film Hitch as well, kind of in their premise and the fact that they're about guys and girls, effectively. It's about the kind of social dynamics between guys and girls. I think we used that as a kind of starting point, and I think what's different about The Pickup is that actually it's much more of a thriller. It's much more of a kind of thriller genre. The way that Hadrian had discussed it was he wanted it to be Swingers meets Fatal Attraction, and so I think that's how I tend to think of it in my mind. Is it starts off like Swingers, and you think you know what's going on, and then it ends on a completely different note. I think, again, something that we've been kind of thinking about is the idea of doing a complete 180 during the film, a la From Dusk Till Dawn, which is such a classic. It starts off like a heist film and ends like a vampire flick. So I think we've been trying to emulate that. I mean, it's so difficult because Tarantino is such an amazingly, incredible writer. It's like, how do you come close to doing that? But I think there's something that we're kind of playing around with. So what I think is that there isn't actually a film like this that's been made, and if there had been, we wouldn't be writing this one. And how have you? Maybe you'd like to talk a little bit about the writing process. How do you guys work together? I mean, is there do you write scenes together, or how's the way it works?
Well, our process sort of developed like any other process, I suppose. When we first started trying to write the original film, the other thing that we were doing, we would sit there together and both sort of like determine what the dialogue was, like try and sort of write the dialogue as we went along, in, you know, as we're sitting there and be like, oh, this works, no, this doesn't work. And that wasn't really very constructed. It didn't really go very far with us, because obviously we both got our ideas, and it was just too much effort. And then with the pickup, we decided that we structured the story, we got the sort of basic through line of what the story we wanted to tell, and then we decided we were going to go away and write individual scenes by ourselves. So we sort of leapfrogged, no pun intended. I would write scene 1, Jake would write scene 2, I would write scene 3, Jake would write scene 4, etc., like that. And that has worked really well for us, and we've got the first draft done, and on that foundation we're now building, in much the same way as we have been before, building the next level, you know, the sort of the other layers to the story. So you know, during the writing process of this film, what are the obstacles that you guys have come up with, and how have you overcome those?
I think personally for me, I think it's been, I suffer a little bit from writer's block, and I think I've written quite a lot of scenes that haven't been any good. It's quite an interesting experience to go through, because writing a scene that doesn't work is, I feel, almost as valuable as writing one that does, because you actually get to know your characters better through writing them. So we had this whole scene that we were going to put in the first draft that was a scene between Lucky and his parents, and we were going to use this to find out why Lucky is the way he is, why he's a misogynistic guy, why he's, you know, out doing these things, you know, because he's a pickup artist. And it's like, what drives a guy to be a pickup artist? Not what drives a guy to be good with women, because I don't think a pickup artist is just a guy who's good with women. You know, I think lots of guys could be better with women, but a pickup artist is, especially in our story, is a guy whose lifestyle revolves around the kind of conquering of women on, you know, a bi-weekly basis. You know, like, these are the guys who date 3 to 4 women a week and pick up women all the time. Every venue they go to, every place they go to, they pick up women. So we were looked at, you know, explaining the kind of family history of Lucky, and the scene didn't make it into the first draft. I don't feel it was an incredibly well written scene, but it really got me thinking about, you know, Lucky's relationship with his parents. So although in the kind of hard copy of the script, it's not there, in my mind I know the characters better. At the moment I'm having a difficult time, because I'm trying to pen a date scene between Lucky and this girl he meets called Talia. And again, I've started to pen it, and it's not going in the direction that I want it, and I think it's because I'm not knowing these characters well enough yet. So I'm kind of going away and kind of having to explore the characters rather than exploring the scene that they're in, which is beneficial. So I think those are obstacles that I feel I've been coming up against. Also, my co-writer's a real pain in the arse. Who's your current favourite character in the film, and why?
I would have to say my current favourite character in the film is Leapfrog, because everyone loves a bad guy, and Leapfrog is actually quite an interesting one. He was just going to be like a bit part, really, originally.
He was only mentioned very briefly in the script.
Yeah,
originally
he was just like a wisp in the wind. He was there and then he was gone, and then I can't remember. It was one of us, or both of us, I guess, who decided to make him a little bit more than that. And he went from being a sort of comedy villain to just being another sort of vehicle for some gags, to now in our sort of second draft being pretty much a central character. You know, he's the black through line of the piece. He's the villain of the piece, and he's actually become a very, very important, like a linchpin